On April 11, 1880, legendary US Army General William T. Sherman stood before 10,000 graduates and uttered 3 words that would echo through history: "War is hell." But what Sherman couldn't have imagined was a hell where the enemy wasn't bullets or bombs, but something far more ancient, something that had been waiting in the darkness for millions of years. In Dante's Divine Comedy, hell is described as 9 concentric circles, each one worse than the last. The deeper you go, the more horrifying it becomes. If war truly is hell, then what happened on Ramree Island in 1945 belongs in that 9th circle, the most nightmarish realm of all. They call it the Ramree Massacre, and by the time this story ends, you'll understand why. Before we go any further, please consider subscribing. It helps me out immensely in creating and uploading new videos for you. Before the outbreak of World War II, Burma, now officially known as Myanmar, was part of the British Empire, but the British were driven out by the Japanese in 1942. 3 years later, the war is almost over. Japanese forces are suffering heavy losses across the entire Pacific theater, and the Allies are wresting back control of the former British colony. The first step: retake the capital, Rangoon, as part of Operation Dracula. But to do that, the Allies need somewhere to base their vital air support. Ramry Island is chosen as the perfect spot, just 200 miles from Rangoon, with plenty of open land suitable for airstrips and deep water ports on the island's northern tip. Right from the very start, the Battle of Ramry Island is a one-sided affair. The Japanese defenders are outnumbered 6-1. With devastating naval and air support at will, they're outgunned by an even wider margin. The initial assault, dubbed Operation Matador, kicks off January 14, 1945, with an amphibious landing on Ramree's pristine northern beaches. Royal Navy reconnaissance had spotted Japanese soldiers installing artillery in caves along the shore, so the British send in the dreadnought-class battleship HMS Queen Elizabeth, supported by dozens of smaller ships and air support to rain down fiery death. By the time the sun sets, the Allies are able to stroll onto the island entirely unopposed. It's almost like a summer holiday, except everything is on fire. By the following day, the port is captured. As Allied forces work their way south, resistance grows fiercer inland, where 1,000 Japanese troops fight like tigers over every inch of ground. But as the Allies spread out across the island, it becomes clear: resistance is futile. Ramree is lost. Japanese General Kenichi Nagasawa has a decision to make. Most military leaders would wave the white flag, but by this point in the war, the Japanese have made it abundantly clear they'd rather die than suffer the shame of surrender. But there's a third option: escape. If Nagasawa and his men can somehow make it to the mainland, they can join up with the bulk of the Japanese army's remaining forces. There's just one small problem with this plan. Between Nagasawa and the safety of the mainland lies a vast mangrove swamp. Picture this nightmare: a near impenetrable maze of trees, covered in thick, oozing mud or waist-high water, depending on the tide. This hellish labyrinth is infested with tropical disease-carrying mosquitoes, poisonous scorpions and spiders dropping from twisted branches, and most ominously of all, massive saltwater crocodiles. All in all, it doesn't sound great, but on the plus side, the mangrove swamp is so thick that the Japanese troops would be all but invisible, both from the ground and air, and it's so dangerous that the Allies surely wouldn't dare follow them inside. In early February, the Japanese abandoned their fortified positions on the island and venture into the swamp. Most would never make it out alive. Let me put this in perspective for you. Saltwater crocodiles are the largest reptiles on Earth, but most people have no idea just how absurdly enormous these beasts can get. 7 meters in length, 2,000 kilograms of pure prehistoric fury, That's an animal significantly longer than a giraffe is tall, and about the weight of 4 large grizzly bears combined. Their bite? 3,700 pounds per square inch, 4 times more powerful than a lion. You may have seen footage of people swimming with sharks, but nobody, and I mean nobody, gets into the water with a fully grown saltwater crocodile if they have any plans of getting back out again. They are ambush hunters, masters of invisibility. Despite their massive bulk, they can make themselves practically invisible in just a few feet of water. They wait motionless for hours, days even, until something tasty gets too close. Then they explode into action with their finishing move, the death roll, tearing whatever's in their mouth to bloody shreds. Now imagine you're a Japanese soldier, exhausted, wounded, starving, trying to navigate by moonlight through this maze of death. One moment you're carefully picking your way through the swamp, and the next something huge shifts in the darkness. You're being dragged beneath the chilling waves by a creature big enough to quite literally swallow you whole. The Japanese soldiers enter the mangrove swamp in pretty bad condition. They've been fighting non-stop for several weeks, and many are ill or injured. In hindsight, they never stood a chance against what was waiting for them. The crocodiles mostly hunt at night. As the soldiers venture through the jungle, they're picked off one by one. It's hard to imagine just how terrifying that must have been. Lieutenant Commander Bruce Wright of the Royal Canadian Navy was there. What he witnessed that night would haunt him for the rest of his life. In his 1962 book, Wildlife Sketches Near and Far, he recorded this chilling account. That night was the most horrible that any member of the motor launch crew ever experienced. The scattered rifle shots in the pitch-black swamp, punctured by the screams of wounded men crushed in the jaws of huge reptiles. And the blurred, worrying sound of spinning crocodiles made a cacophony of hell that has rarely been duplicated on Earth. At dawn, the vultures arrived to clean up what the crocodiles had left. Of about 1,000 Japanese soldiers that entered the swamps of Ramree, only about 20 were found alive. Wright's account became the definitive version of events. For several decades, the Battle of Ramry Island was even featured in the Guinness Book of Records as the animal attack with the most human fatalities in history. But was it true? For decades, this story has been told and retold. Books, documentaries, countless retellings of the night when nature reclaimed its dominance over mankind. But recently, historians have started asking uncomfortable questions. Could 980 men really have been killed by crocodiles in a single night? The math doesn't add up. To support that many kills, the swamp would need thousands of massive crocodiles. But there isn't enough food, isn't enough space. It's ecologically impossible. In 2001, herpetologist, that's people who specialize in reptiles, Stephen Platt made a disturbing discovery about Bruce Wright's account. Almost every wildlife anecdote in Wright's entire book is written from his own perspective, but the chilling tale of the crocodile massacre is written in third person. And there's a very good reason for that. Wright wasn't actually there when the alleged massacre took place. His version of events comes from conversations he had with those who were there, and it seems a few of the details may have been embellished along the way. But here's something even more interesting about Wright's account. He never actually explicitly stated that all the soldiers were killed by crocodiles, only that 1,000 soldiers entered the swamp, and just 20 came out alive. As we've already seen, there were plenty of other dangers waiting for the Japanese among the mangroves, tropical diseases, poisonous creepy crawlies, probably even more deadly, the conditions themselves. The sucking mud that would sap an already weak soldier's strength, the lack of food, the brackish water that wasn't safe to drink, not to mention Allied soldiers patrolling the swamp's scattered waterways in boats who would likely have shot anyone they came across. Put all this together, and it seems ridiculous to assume that all 900 soldiers were murdered by massive crocodiles. More importantly, it turns out the numbers themselves were wrong in the first place. We can debate what may or may not have killed 900 men in a swamp 80 years ago till the cows come home, but according to official military records, a solid 500 of them didn't actually die at all. They made it out alive to join up with their comrades on the mainland. Total casualties attributed to the entire 6-week battle, only 500. It's extremely likely that crocodiles were responsible for some of those deaths, but it's an absolute certainty that the true number is orders of magnitude smaller than most people have been led to believe. These days, the general consensus amongst historians is that most of the 500 poor souls who died lost their lives either to drowning or the guns of the Allies, with crocodiles mostly just scavenging the corpses when they got the chance. Truth is, we'll never know the real numbers. Like Bruce Wright, who started all this trouble in the first place, we weren't there. Most of those who were are no longer with us, and even if they were, exactly what happened under the cover of those mangrove trees is inherently unknowable. Those on the outside couldn't see in, and those who perished took their secrets to their watery graves. Yes, some were certainly taken by crocodiles. These are apex predators, after all, but a mass feeding frenzy by hundreds of giant reptiles? That's the stuff of nightmares, not history. The Battle of Ramree Island has become something more than history. It's become legend, a cautionary tale about the thin line between civilization and the wild. But perhaps the most unsettling truth isn't about crocodiles at all. It's about how easily we accept the stories we're told, how a single account embellished over decades can become accepted fact. How many other documented events in our history books might be just as exaggerated, just as mythologized? The real question isn't whether 980 men were killed by crocodiles on Ramree Island. The real question is, what else have we been told that isn't true? If this story made you question what you thought you knew about history, hit that like button and subscribe for more investigations into the myths and legends that shape our world. And remember, sometimes the most terrifying monsters aren't the ones lurking in dark waters, they're the ones hiding in plain sight in our history books.